I wonder if you've ever known what it feels like to be thirsty. And I mean really thirsty. It starts with a slight itch at the back of your throat, but it'll soon become a distracting urge to stop whatever you are doing and find something to drink. If you don't, you'll soon become dizzy, lightheaded, licking your lips, trying to somehow find some moisture. Now, it's not good to be thirsty anywhere, but David, the writer of today's song, he feels thirsty in the worst possible place. David is in the middle of a desert, a dry and parched land. And he isn't there by choice. David is the nation's king, but his rebellious son has risen up to lead a coup. He's trying to steal the throne. And so David is fleeing for his life. He's marooned in a baked wasteland. His life's in danger. His enemies are pursuing him. His days are filled with insecurity. As the baking sun, it beats down on his head. Imagine how David longs for a mouthful of cold, refreshing water. But there's none in sight. David is physically empty. He's hot, tired, and thirsty. His physical thirst is matched by a second thirst, a deeper thirst of the soul. He doesn't just crave life-giving water. He also thirsts for a closeness with God. At the time he needs him most, God feels distant. David sings from a place of exhaustion, both physical and emotional. This feeling, it may be familiar. Perhaps you've known seasons of longing for God, times when life's oppressive heat has left you feeling empty and dry. And God, he just seems far off. In these seasons, it's easy to doubt God cares for us. Our circumstances can cause us to ask, has God forgotten me? Does he still love me? But it is here in the desert that David writes his song, because he knows that there are better indicators of God's love for us than our circumstances. And he finds this confidence through turning his thoughts back to the sanctuary in the city of Jerusalem. You see, the sanctuary, it lay at the heart of Israel's worship in the tabernacle. Primarily, the sanctuary was a place of sacrifice. Throughout the Old Testament, we see that to abandon the God of life, it invariably leads to death. Yet God mercifully allows his people to offer a sacrifice in their place. So as the people made their sacrifices in the sanctuary, they were being reminded that though they deserved death, God had made a way for them to draw near to him. In the heat of the desert, David recalls having seen God, having experienced the power of his presence whilst offering sacrifices. This memory provides him with a new perspective. He can be confident of God's love for him, not because of his circumstances, but because of sacrifice. David remembers what the sacrifice visually demonstrates, that the living God would rather provide a sacrifice and be reconciled to his people than simply watch them perish. The sanctuary speaks of a God who wants to be known, who has done everything so that he can be known, whose love is better than life. Now, in the middle of the desert, the blazing sun still beating down on his head, his mouth as dry as it's ever been, David finds hope. Surprisingly, David's circumstances, they don't dictate his tone. The tempo and the lyrics of the song, they remain hopeful. Verse 5 reveals David's deep contentment. He writes, I will be satisfied as with the richest of foods. You see, on certain occasions, worshippers at the sanctuary, they were allowed to eat the meat from their offerings. These meals, they embodied the richness of friendship with God. And David draws a parallel. His satisfaction in God, the love he experiences, is so rich, so satisfying, it is like the finest of foods. And there are further echoes of the sanctuary as we get to verse 7. At one level, when David sings of sheltering in the shadow of God's wing, he portrays himself as a tiny chick, sheltering under the safe wings of its mother. But this image, it links to the sanctuary, where the golden wings of the cherubim above the Ark of the Covenant, They picture God's powerful and glorious presence over his people. David was reassured that as he clung to God, God's grip on him would be even stronger. So what gives David confidence that God will not leave him permanently thirsty, permanently empty? It's not his circumstances, but sacrifice. As we learn to sing this song, we are directed to that same hope. Our circumstances, they may look empty, they may look dry, but we too can be confident of God's love for us, demonstrated in sacrifice. Now, not the sacrifice of animals in the sanctuary, but the greater, once and for all sacrifice, which they were all pointing to. Through Jesus' sacrifice, God has done everything that we may know him. Sometimes we feel like we're in a desert, but it is remembering Jesus' sacrifice that means even in that desert, our confidence and hope, it can be renewed. Because Jesus hung on the cross for us, crying out with spiritual and physical thirst, he guaranteed that streams of living water would flow our way, even in the driest place. Regardless of our circumstances, we can be assured that his love is better than life. And it's with this confidence that David's song closes. As God's anointed king, he is confident that his enemies will ultimately be brought to nothing. Though they want to kill him, David feels assured that he will be protected from their plots. While his mouth will be filled with praise, their mouths will be silenced. As he feasts on this rich food, they will become food for wild animals. God hasn't given us specific promises about our difficult circumstances, but we can have the same trust in God, knowing that he hasn't changed from the days of David. His love and faithfulness transcend our circumstances. And as we remember the ultimate sacrifice willingly offered by Jesus for us on the cross, we can join in David's song, renewed in hope and praise. Even in seasons of emptiness, we can trust our God, knowing that he will satisfy us with the richest portion of all.